Good morning to you all and welcome to your weekly morning show. Without further ado, we start our discussion segment. The presidential and parliamentary elections in Turkey are set for this Sunday. Turkish voters face a stark choice between two different frontrunners offering drastically different visions for the country. In what context do these elections come? To what extent will these elections determine the form of government in Turkey? Will the young generation have an impact on the race? And how will the future president shape the economic state of the country? These questions will be explored with our guest, Mr. Hamoud Salhi, Professor and Associate Dean of International Education at California University. Good morning, Mr. Hamoud Salhi.
Good morning, Mariam. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you for accepting our invite. First, let's watch the report, and we will have the discussion after the report.
President Erdogan, confident of winning another term, is meeting large crowds of supporters in the final days of campaign. However, opinion polls suggest that his chances are close to those of his most prominent contender, Khalid Daroglu, who is entering the election arena supported by a unified opposition front. The sharp decline in the value of lira against the dollar is a significant issue in this election. The opposition has focused on this data and labeled it as unforgivable economic failure, hoping to influence the attitude of voters, particularly young people who were born and raised during the rule of the Justice and Development Party. Erdogan's approach has been focused on highlighting the achievements made during his tenure in office. This strategy has reduced the power of the opposition's claims about the economic crisis. However, the devastating earthquake that recently hit large parts of the south of the country has introduced an unexpected factor into the election campaign. Both the ruling party and the opposition have attempted to explode the disaster, but it remains to be seen how this will affect the final outcome.
We cannot be ready for elections in this environment. We are not ready for the election in any sense. We and thousands like us aren't at all ready for the election. Elections are taking place prematurely.
The refugee file is another issue that the opposition has played on in an attempt to influence Turkish voters. The opposition blames the Justice and Development Party for the consequences of the open-door policy of refugees, claiming that it has cost Turkey a lot. The ruling party has taken a series of measures, including determining the number of refugees and working to return them to their homeland to address this issue. With just few days left ahead of the election, both the ruling party and the opposition are fighting hard to keep voters on their side. The result of this election will be a decisive factor in determining Turkey's political future and the path of President Erdogan, who has been in power for more than 20 years.
As we've seen in the report, for the last 20 years, Erdogan has been running the country. This Sunday, Turkey will hold a landmark national election with two main candidates, Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. Mr. Salhi, in what national and international context do these elections come?
For the national context, there are several issues, and I think your report indicates them. One of them is the continued concerns over the state of the economy, the continued decline, at one point the stability of the lira against the dollar, and then there is the issue of the earthquake and the impact it has had, particularly since it touched the areas under President Erdogan base. And there were some failures that the opposition took seriously and looked at it in terms of link to Erdogan's achievements. Internationally, you have on the front page the Syrian issue that is connected with the refugees. Add to that membership in the NATO. On the one hand, Turkey is a member of NATO, but then the position it has taken on the Ukrainian, where it has had a balanced position. You have also the whole debate in Turkey for so many years that we had about whether Turkey should look at the West as the opposition is pushing for, or continue to be looking at the West by leading a policy that is linked to its roots, being a country that is emerging as a power in the region. And then on top of that, you have changes in the demographics of Turkey. The positions that or the views of secularism versus conservatism that long defined Turkey are slowly changing. The youth, for example, today is leaning to look at the political process more in terms of economic gains. Their values to Islam are very well sort of connected, but they don't to their personality. But they don't use it as a mean or as they used to define their vote. So it's a very, very tough elections, and it's also it's a promising to be a very close one.
All right. How about the Arab world and Western world reactions to this presidential contest?
So far, really, the reaction has been varied. Those supporters of Erdogan focuses more about his achievement, his leadership style, and also the fact that these elections, that Turkey is divided in part because you have a united opposition. So from that perspective, there is an emphasis on looking at the future of Turkey as either going through the same as we've seen this before, or changing with the opposition. That also is reflected in how the media is reporting it in the Western world in particular. I think the Arab world is taking more of a wait-and-see attitude. Turkey has established several relationships with key Arab countries, including the Saudis, United Arab Emirates, and it's to a large extent with Egypt. These are very important factors. The West continues to blame the president of Turkey on the fear that he could use the migration issue as a leverage. Also, Turkey's position on Turkey, and as we've seen on a number of occasions, Turkey has been very instrumental in pushing and trying to find a solution to the Ukrainian crisis, but those efforts have not been noticed, an indication that the West has sort of some concerns about the Turkish president. There are accusations that the system shifting to a presidential system has not produced what was expected. There are also blame about the effect of the earthquake, and the emphasis there more about the failure of adopting policies that were implemented, that were designed to be implemented but never implemented, and which caused, according to this report, more death and more casualties. So it is a very, very significant elections, both for regional and international points of view, and in particular, when we talk about the region, we're talking about the Arab world.
Talking about the regional and international levels, to what extent will actually these elections determine the form of government first in Turkey and then in its future role in the international scene and in the regional level?
So there is a discussion that these elections will determine that type of political system that emerge. Similarly, specifically, the Turkish people voted recently or a few years ago about shifting to a presidential system. There are discussions that should the opposition win, we are going back to the parliamentarian system. That sort of left to be seen for the obvious reason. This is a system that is established by a referendum. Turkish voted for it, so the changes had to be through a referendum, and that brings us another issue. So there is that structural system that is being discussed. The other issue that comes into perspective is that in any presidential system, be it the French system is notorious for that. You have too much power is given to executive and in particular to leader. The French system was established as presidential in a reaction to the personality of Charles de Gaulle. He was a very strong man. So the system that comes out of the presidential system in France heavily gave power to the executive. In the case of the United States, we have that check and balance, but the executive continues to play a role. So there is this discussion whether if Erdogan is to lose, then we might be shifting to a different form of system, a form of parliamentary system. I don't see that as that sort of to be happening, but it is an issue that has been that is being sort of constantly brought up to indicate that these elections are about will change or have the potential to change how politics is led in Turkey.
Understood. And what do the Turks expect from the future new leader? Another question that's related to this one, will the young generation be an important factor in the race?
That is really a very big question. The concern of the Turkish, from the polls that we've seen, is economy. And this is, you see it when you are in Turkey. The Turkish people have been affected by the economic conditions. This is part due to the fact that we are in a world crisis. The effect of the COVID-19, and more so for Turkey is the effect of the earthquake, and be rebuilding the provinces or the areas that are affected by the earthquake is a tall order. Now, what the president has been doing is looking at the achievement, what Turkey has achieved under Erdogan, focusing on his legacy. What has brought. Certainly, the economic conditions are a big concern to Turkey. Erdogan is not as popular as he was before in 2018 when he won the elections. At that time, he won 18 million, more than he won the elections with comfortably. 6 months ago, before the election, before the earthquake, he was very popular. The earthquake changed that, and in part, the way the earthquake was handled according to public opinions, but also because of the big disaster that we've seen. So the economy remains an issue. For the youth, we have seen a change in the demographic in Turkey, particularly on the issue of secularism and conservatism. In the past, conservatives tend to vote or voted for Erdogan and his parties, Adalet Justice. So they fought for they voted for him. But in recently, what you've seen, the youth are more concerned or are more taking an attitude where they are they strong believer in their religion, in being Muslim and their identity, but they don't use it as a mean as the only mean in considering the votes, and that sort of took away some of the votes that once was guaranteed for Erdogan, now is shifting to that. But so that youth will play a role in these elections. Some see them as undecided. When you look at the poll today, and the poll are always sort of manipulated, used for certain reasons. But if we take them for that they are a good measure or a measure of seeing where the elections are or where the candidates are, the difference between the two candidates give power to those who are undecided. So the youth, if he decides to stay home, that could have an impact on the elections. But it is a significant power that both parties, both candidates are looking at it seriously.
The young generation represents a big number in Turkey. And talking about a struggling economy, Mr. Hamoud Salhi, Turkey is facing a struggling economy, soaring inflation that has caused financial issue for millions of people in Turkey. As you have mentioned, it's the main concern of the Turkish today. So how will the future candidate shape the country's economy, according to you?
I think it boils down to the trust. Do the Turkish feel that Erdogan is their leader and he will be able to move the country forward? He certainly has a record of doing good in this area. Under his leadership, the country became a major economic power, and the Turkish people benefited from that. So it's a matter of how this is perceived. The biggest challenge is that up to this point, we really don't have an alternative or haven't seen an alternative, the opposition, that is different from what Erdogan is proposing, and B, it could be as effective better, more efficient than what Erdogan is there. So the bottom line is, do you trust Erdogan to be the leader that could take you the next step and solve the economic problems? The other thing is that what is going for the president, he has initiated several economic projects that have some impact in the future of Turkey. This impact shows vision. This program shows vision, and also gives direction to the Turkish population, and that sort of set him perhaps apart from the other issue. When we look at, for example, the issue of the earthquake touched or affected Erdogan's supporters. It's where it happened. It happened in areas that are populated by supporters of Erdogan, and the debate there is very, very interesting. The message that the president tried to convey is that this is an earthquake, it's an act of God, and we could not do. We only do what we can, but his emphasis also is on combating corruption when it comes to policy implementation. And in that perspective, there is attention to the efforts that he has been doing. And when we look at the polls, the effect of the earthquake is not as bad for the Erdogan as it was before. So, and the bottom line, this election is about the future of Turkey. It's about the economy. It's about the national security when you look at what's happening in the region. But the opposition ability to bring an alternative and to challenge Erdogan is so far not raised at a level where we could say Erdogan is in trouble, the opposition will win. And part of it, there is the issue of economy. There are other issues that are linked there, but essentially the economy plays a role in that.
Understood. Mr. Salhi, thank you for waking up early, and thank you for these valuable insights. And thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Miriam.
Thank you, dear viewers, for following today's discussion. Stay here for the rest of the show.